Hello, thank you for joining me today. Today we are going to be giving the Improve Your Search Ranking webinar. We're going to be talking about how to build your Weebly site using techniques and using the software that we provide you to build the best base possible to make sure that your site generates as good of a search ranking as it can. It's important to set a good foundation, and that's what we'll be going over today. My name is Justin. I work for Weebly in our Scottsdale office as a T2 Advanced Tech. I have the pleasure to be able to provide these webinars every week to our users. I love being able to teach in scale, and this is a fantastic way to do it. Feel free to ask questions as I move through this presentation. I pretty much am going to go through a set presentation, but if you have any questions that come up, feel free to ask as we go through. I will be answering all of the questions that you have related to SEO at the end of the presentation, but feel free to ask as they come up. And here we go. I have a website here that I built, and we're going to get started in the Settings tab and SEO. Now, if you were going to do nothing else, this is where you would want to start. Here we see that we can set a site description. It's going to appear in search engine results. We have 250 characters that we can type in. I already have some text that I'm just going to paste in. You don't need to watch me type. So this text reads, "Sharing my love for the practice and art of Ashtanga Yoga with the world. Learn the asanas, be inspired by the gurus, and follow along into the beauty of this style of yoga created by Pattabhi Jois." As you read through this, it's very clear that I have purposefully used various key terms and phrases very naturally within this description. I want this description to be basically a summary of what I have on my homepage or what my site is about. If you had to summarize your website or business in 2 to 3 sentences, how would you do that? And whatever that language is, you want to put that here as the site description. Meta keywords is a location where we can put simply the keywords which we're using. So I'm going to use some of the similar ones that we used above. We're going to use asanas, gurus, ashtanga. Now you notice that I used the space here and here I didn't. It doesn't really matter, but you can see that if I delete this space, we're going to gain an extra character. So if you want to use all 255 available characters for keywords, then you won't want to put spaces after the comma. But other than that, it doesn't really matter whether you use spaces or not. One of the things about Ashtanga is that it can be spelled in 2 different ways, with the H or without it. So I'm going to use both ways of spelling within my website and as part of my keywords. Ultimately, I want to optimize my site for either way to spell the word. I could continue, add more keywords. Ultimately, I'm going to want to choose the 15 to 20 best keywords in terms of what summarizes my website, my business, the purpose behind what I am doing. Once you're done adding this information, you click Save in the bottom right. And just to kind of show you where this shows up on your live website, if we go to the live site, now I need to publish for the changes to show live. So we'll go to the live website, inspect the source. We're not going to get too deep into this. I just wanted to show you that here we have the description that I added, and we also have the keywords. Just want to show you where you're going to see them on the live site because they're not visible on your page. So back in settings, SEO, we see these boxes, footer code and header code. I will be touching on these later in the presentation. hide site from search engines. If you had a private community website, or myself, I have a private blog that's just for me to log information. You can hide your entire site from search engines so that nothing will ever show up in Google or Bing or Yahoo. And that's a way to just kind of keep your site private. But we don't want to do that. We want it to be live. 301 redirects, we will touch on this at the very end of the presentation. It's a very powerful way to, if you're rebuilding your website with Weebly, there's great benefit in using 301 redirects, and we will go over why a bit later. So again, any changes that you make here, we need to click the green Save button in the bottom right, and then publish those changes to the live site. Now I should mention that optimizing your website, there's no magic button. There is not one single thing that you can do that is going to make your site better than all of the rest of them. I'm in competition on this site with everybody else that is using these types of keywords, has this type of website with this type of content. Adding in the description and keywords is not going to be the end-all be-all, but it would be the first step, and we're going to go through other steps again to really build a solid foundation that your website can launch off from. If we click the Pages tab at the top, we see our list of pages on the left-hand side. My home page is called Welcome, and if I click on it, we're taken into this section here where I can see the header type, visibility, and this advanced settings button. And here we have SEO options for individual pages on our site. I can set this for every single page, and in my opinion, I would suggest that you do this. So we go into the advanced section, we see page title, page description, meta keywords. These two are familiar. We set these in the settings tab. Footer code, header code, and we can hide the page from search engines if we want an individual page hidden. So let's start at the top, page title. Now, what does this mean? So when I go back to my live website, I can see that we've got a name for my homepage. It's just /welcome. Now the homepage, it doesn't show here, but by default, I can see that the title of the page is welcome. I see my site title there, and then I see the name that I've given my page, which is welcome. But welcome isn't a very descriptive term, and choosing a descriptive term is important because if my site comes up in Google, this blue link is going to be determined by the same thing that determines what shows up at the end of this name here, welcome. So do I want welcome to show up here? No, because it's just not descriptive at all. I'd rather have something like this. You see there's site title, name, and then blah, blah, blah. This is what the page is about. We're going to do something similar. So we could put in, we could start with welcome. Welcome, Asana's check out the Asanas and learn from the gurus with us. Something like that. Maybe that's a little bit long, but that's the general idea. Page description, this is the same exact concept as we had in the settings tab. Now keep in mind that when we set it in the settings tab, all we're doing is we're setting it for the home page. So if you are going to go all out with your SEO, you could skip setting it in the settings SEO tab. You wouldn't have to set it here because whatever we put in this section is going to overwrite what we have in settings SEO. So rather than typing something real, let's just say here is my new description and my new keywords, just so we can see how this works. So we'll click back to save, and then we will publish our site to live. So now we go back to the site. we hover over up here, we're going to see that page title which we set. So now instead of just saying welcome, which was the name of my page, it says welcome, check out the asanas and learn from the gurus with us. If we go into the source, we're going to see the new descriptions and the new keywords. So again, whatever we set in this page's advanced settings is going to overwrite what is set here. So if you wanted to do bare minimum, then you would just set this and move on with life. But you're here for the webinar, so clearly you're going to want to use stuff like this. Again, this description is what's going to show up as this text down here in search results. The title is what's going to show up as the blue link. So that's the difference between the page title and the page name. Another great way to look at this is my page name shows up as the navigation items. So I want my navigation item to be a very simple name, but I want it to be more descriptive in search engines. So our lunch time asanas, whatever you wanted to do. And again, you want to fill this space with keywords and phrases which are already on your page. You want to utilize the content of your website to help you build out your description and keywords and all of the rest. You don't want to put in keywords that have nothing to do with your page. Google is smarter than that. So for here, if I was going to put real keywords, we would say the science, or how about yoga, science, spiritual, happiness, etc. Items that are actually on our page. Again, anytime we make changes, we need to publish the site for those changes to show in the live code. One of the concepts of search engine optimization that has never changed from 20 years ago when we were writing HTML just by hand, writing it out to build our sites, to now where we can use a drag and drop like Weebly. There's one thing that's been consistent the whole time, and that is that nothing matters more on your website when it comes to search ranking and optimization than the content of your site. Think of it this way. Google's goal is to provide me as the person doing a search with the best option possible. It wants to give me with the most pertinent information for the search that I have done. It uses a lot of algorithms and techniques to do that, but no matter what, it's the content of your site that's going to matter most. Also because your site's not going to do too well if people aren't interested in it. You build interesting copy and content so that you draw more people to your site and you draw those people back as return visitors. All of those things help with your eventual search ranking. So content on the page in terms of text is extremely important. I showed you this page earlier for my lunchtime asana. I'm using this as a table of contents basically, and there is no real text on the page, just this right here. If I was really trying to build this page up to be optimized in a powerful way, I would pull a text element onto the page and I would start putting some text in. I love the way it looks nice and simple, but the truth is that it's not going to do me a huge benefit as far as optimization goes the way that I have currently built it. Your content in terms of your text is king. It matters more than anything else that you do with your site. But what about images? We saw in the search, when I search for yoga, there are images that show up. So what about on my site? Can I make my images show up in search engines? Well, certainly I can optimize them to do so. And as my site gets better ranking, my images get more value attributed to them, and there's a chance that they could show up. Here we're back at my home page, And what this is a 4 columns that just have image elements within them. So I used this element on the left, dragged it onto the page, built these columns. These are image elements. If we click on an image element and scroll down in the modal, click on Advanced, we see this setting here for alt text. Now by default, this alt text is just going to say picture. So on my site, where these images are in the code, the word picture is going to be attributed to that source. But I want to be more descriptive than picture. I want to say something like advanced Ashtanga Yoga headstand. And we'll click back to save. And this one, how about we set Ashtanga Yoga arm balance, and back to save. So if I publish my site now, remember no changes will go live until we publish. We're going to dip back into the source one more time. We're going to find these images on the page. So here we can see the images that are in that section. So the image source, this is done for you. Again, you never have to worry about coding. I want to show you how this works. The alt text shows up here within the same tag that the image shows up in. So it is literally a part of the image. So if we scroll down here we find the one that I changed. The alt tag is now Ashtanga Yoga headstand. This text is now intimately connected with this particular image. Same thing with this. Another powerful reason to do this to all of your images is that if somebody is visually impaired and using a screen reader, as they're on your site and they're scrolling over, a piece of software is going to be reading your website to them. And when they get to these pictures and hover over, it's going to say picture, 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 picture. That's not very descriptive. When I hover my mouse over this, it'll say Ashtanga Yoga headstand. When I hover my mouse here, it'll say Ashtanga Yoga arm balance. So those are 2 very good reasons to put in the time to do something like this. I think that it's very important if you have any desire of using your images to your benefit when it comes to the optimization of your site. Now there are multiple ways to put images on a Weebly site. These are image elements, but here on the Lunchtime Asana page, I used a gallery. So when we click on the gallery modal, go to Advanced, first thing we notice is there is no field for alt text. There's not a way to attribute alt text to gallery images in the same way that you can do with regular image elements. So what can we do instead? Well, we can do what I've already done here and set captions. Now the captions are not going to be attributed within the tag in the same way that an alt tag would be, but still the image is associated with this caption and it can work in a similar way. So it's something that I would suggest doing to your galleries, adding captions to aid in their optimization. The third method of adding pictures on Weebly is using a slideshow. So the first one was image, the second one was gallery, and the third one is slideshow. In slideshow, if we click in, go to advanced, again we see that there is no ability to add alt tags. So I would do something similar to the galleries, which is add captions. You can see I've done that for this one, Ashtanga Yoga arm balance, and here we would do Ashtanga Yoga headstand. Save, and publish to make our changes go live. Now again, as soon as we publish the site and refresh the site, the live site, all of the changes that we made will automatically show up in our code. But if we're making a change like this title or a description or something that's very visible in Google, it can take time for the search engines to update what they know about my website. Typically, 2 to 3 weeks is the amount of time that it'll take Google to recrawl my website. So they have robots which go out and they look through the code of the site, learning everything about it, images, alt tags, text, and it gets a picture of what your site is about, and then it moves on and comes back in a few weeks. But how can we make that time frame much more quick? I don't want to wait 2 weeks. I'd rather wait 2 to 3 days. So the next thing that we're going to set up is basically a relationship with Google directly, where we are telling them about our site and we are giving them kind of an insider view into any changes that we make or anything of that nature. So we're back in settings, SEO. We're going to scroll down, and right beneath this header code box, we see this Google Webmaster Tools link, and we're going to click it. We're taken to Google Webmaster Tools, which is a very powerful free software provided by Google to help you understand your website better, understand how it's being seen, and understand what you can do to make it more powerful, make it a better tool for you. So we're going to get signed in, and here we go. We're at the default view of the Search Console. I don't have any sites in here. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is add a property. They use the word property in place of the word website, same thing. So we'll go to the live site, copy my URL, go back to the Search Console and paste it in. Now, one thing to note here is that I'm using a Weebly.com subdomain. So I'm not going to be putting any sort of www in here because that's not something that I use for a Weebly.com subdomain, nor will you. But let's say I owned theartofashtanga.com. What I would want to do is I would want to type in the www into this area. If I don't, Google is going to ask me to go through this process a second time for the www version of my live site. So if you just do that the first time, then you'll only have to do the process once. But again, we're using a Weebly.com, and so we don't have to worry about that. I click on Add Property, and I'm taken to the next page of the process. Google's telling me that there are a few different ways that I can verify that I own this domain name. I can't just put in Weebly.com and claim that I own it. I have to prove it to Google. There's a recommended method, which is the HTML tag. There are also alternate methods. Sometimes, depending on what you have used in the past, different methods will show up as the recommended one. We are always going to recommend that you find the HTML tag option and use it. It's the easiest way. So we're going to copy the meta tag below. So all I have to do is click in here, right click and copy. And we need to paste it into my site's homepage. It should go in the head section before the first body section. So what does that mean? So we go back to the editor here, and we have this box that's header code. And quite literally what this is doing is exactly what Google just asked us to do. It's going to place this code on every page of my website, and it's going to place it in the header section of the code before the body section. We won't get too in-depth into it, but all of my images and text and galleries and slideshows, all of that is in the body section of my code. And then all of kind of the code that is kind of the background to my website, like the background coding, that's what shows up in the header area. So that's where we're going to paste this as well. We put the meta code in this header code box. Remember, we have to save and publish for the change to go live. We will go back to the Search Console, and the next step is to simply click on Verify. So we click verify, and congratulations, we have successfully verified our ownership of this URL. Continue. And so here we go. We have a page that has nothing on it right now, but eventually will be a very powerful tool to help us analyze our site. The next step in the process here is to look over here on the right-hand side at sitemaps. We want to submit a sitemap because it's going to be the thing that gives Google that very intimate look at our site. So if we click on no sitemaps, we haven't uploaded anything yet, so let's go ahead and add one. So it automatically populates our URL and then says put in the URL for where your sitemap is. So on Weebly, this is something that's automatically created for you. You don't have to do anything to make this occur. Sitemap.xml. Every single Weebly site, it'll be in the exact same place, /sitemap.xml. If I click enter, I'm taken to an XML file, which is just code. This file, you can see that it has all of my different pages, all of the ones that I haven't chose to be hidden from search engines, that is. And it also has the date and time that the page was last modified. And on Weebly, this is associated with the last time that I published my site. So sitemap.xml, let's copy that, go back to the search console, and we'll paste it in. Got to get rid of this extra /, and here we go. So we're going to submit the sitemap, item submitted, refresh the page, and now we can see that Google has found that we have submitted URLs and URLs have been indexed. And now at this point, we have basically given Google a way to know exactly what our site is right now in terms of what pages are live and when were they last published live. So this is what Google knows about it at this moment. If I go in and republish my site, then the sitemap that Google has seen will no longer match up with my new sitemap because the timestamps will have changed. We can see that this minute just updated. So Google will recognize that those are no longer aligned and that it should go back to my website and take another look because it seems that something has changed. And this is how we force Google to take a look at our site more often, which makes it so that when we make changes such as our page titles or descriptions, Google shows the changes much more quickly than it otherwise would. Now this search console is, like I said, a very powerful tool. We're not going to get into any more of it than that today, but if you go to youtube.com and then we can search for Google Webmaster Tools. How to use Google Webmaster Tools put out by Google. Lots of great information here on what you can do to use their software, which again is free. All right, so if we head back to the Weebly editor, what else can we do with our site to help set up this great foundation of optimization? Well, there are a few things that I took for granted at the beginning. I didn't even go over, and they're here at Settings General, my site address, and my site title. Now my site title, as we can see in my tabs up here, shows up in every single tab of my site. I also have it set to show at the top of my pages, so it's going to be very visible. So you're going to want to choose something that is, if you could summarize your site or business in 3 to 4 words, 2 to 3 words, as short and concise as possible, how would you do it? Usually this will be the name of your business. That makes a lot of sense if you're a business. If it's a more obscure personal page, you can be more creative. And you'll want to choose something that really helps people identify what your site is about. The site address is the same concept. You're going to want something that is recognizable. If it's a business, you want it to be something along the line of your business name. It should be short and concise. You want something that's somebody's going to be able to look at and remember when they try to type it in later. You don't want something that's 6 or 7 words long. It's just too much. If you're going to do that, you may want to use a breakdown of the word, right, and just use the first letters rather than the whole all the words. Or you can just try to keep a nice short summary that has can be memorable. We've touched on it multiple times, and we're going to touch on it again. There's really nothing more important on your site for your optimization than your content. Your content is king, and this is because of multiple reasons. Google really appreciates the value of a site that has a lot to say, that gives a lot of information, that is valuable when in terms of what it can offer people. And the other side of it is that my search engine ranking is kind of a snowball effect. At the beginning, it's going to be very slow. I'm not going to have very much. But when I have some people start coming to my website, what I want to do is kind of capture them. I want them to be interested enough to where they come back. I don't want people to come to my site once, click around a little bit, and then never come back. Maybe they come back once a week later, and my content is exactly the same. I don't offer anything different. I'm not making continuous updates. Well, at that point in time, they might come back very rarely, maybe as a reference to something that I said, but they're not going to come back regularly. And regular visitors are it's the reason that the most powerful large sites are the most powerful large sites, because people keep coming back. So Google and these search engines see value in that people continually return to the site. It must be valuable, so you get a higher ranking. So more people find you, more people come back, and you get a higher ranking. It's this snowball effect. So when I build a site like this, it's a very visual thing. I really like the way that it looks. Yes, I should definitely add more text to this page, but ultimately, I'm not going to want to make a lot of changes to it. So if I'm not going to make changes to this page, what is a way that I can continually keep my content fresh on my site? And one of the things that almost all of the top sites do is use a blog. Now you can add a blog by clicking the plus button and adding a blog page. I've already added one. If we go here to blog, we see that I have a blog page and I have a test blog post. Now, a blog can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Whatever is in alignment with what your site is about, or what you have to say, or the message you are sharing, or whatever. You build blog posts about that. Maybe it's about the climate of the economics for your type of industry, or something like that one day. And maybe another day it's about a customer, like a testimonial or whatever. Use it however you would like. So we build a blog, and we see here on the left-hand side that my blog page overall, I can set the title, description, keywords in the same manner that I can with any other page. But I can also optimize my individual posts. So if I go into this post that I've already created, again, text is king, your content is king. Text is going to be very valuable. Images, if you add them, make sure that you're setting the alt text. So kids yoga Surrey A, something like that. Back to save. Down here in the bottom left, there's a post options button. Advanced settings, there's a permalink. This permalink is basically where this blog post will be found on my site. So if I go to my site real quick, go to blog, and click on this blog post, I can see that the permalink for this is /blog, which is the name of my blog. I could call it journal, I could call it whatever I wanted to call it. And then the permalink for the blog post. That is going to be based off of the initial title that I give to my blog post. But I can change that at any time. If I wanted it to be shorter or different, or I wanted to put a date in there at some point for some reason, I could absolutely do that. I can also set the SEO post title and post description for the blog post. If I don't do this, then sites like Facebook and Google are just going to look at my page and try to put this stuff in themselves. So a lot of times they're just going to choose the first, 2 lines of text, and they'll choose this as the title, but sometimes they'll, for whatever reason, pull text from your sidebar. So instead of taking information from the actual post, it's going to take information that has nothing to do with that individual post. So I would always use these on the left-hand side. Then I can tell search engines and sites like Facebook exactly how I want to represent this blog post when it is shared on their platform. One other aspect of blogs that's really powerful at kind of helping our site grow, building more pages and more content, is by using categories. So categories, the obvious reason to do it is, let's say that obviously this blog post is about yoga. I'll type it in and press enter, and this is specifically about kids yoga. And let's say that we also use teaching, something. So we've added these categories. When we update the blog post, everything that we have set here will show. And we can see that now I have these categories on the right-hand side. When I update a blog post, it immediately changes on my live site. But if I add new categories, I have to publish my site for the categories to also show on the live site. So we go to the live site, jump in, go to blog. And if we check out these categories, one thing I want you to notice is that it has created a brand new page, which is using this keyword, kids yoga. So now I have a brand new page on my site using keywords of my site, and it's going to, as a practical matter, display posts which I have tagged with this keyword. But the fact that it actually adds an extra page is powerful. It's another page that can be indexed by Google. It's another page that somebody could go to. It's another page that can generate value for my site. So a very powerful thing. So if I go add a new post real quick, jump in, new post, and then we'll just add some text, post options. Notice I cannot set a permalink until after I have posted it, but let's add categories. So we'll add new post, enter, and we'll add yoga. Let's go ahead and post it. We can click on this link and it'll take us directly to the new post on the live site. Now let's say that I really like my title, but I don't like the URL. We can separate them by changing the permalink. Head back into the post, click on it to edit, click on post options, go to advanced, and I can set the permalink to whatever I want, something extremely descriptive. Click on update. And now we can see that the permalink has changed, but the name of the post is the same. So this allows you to separate those two aspects. Now if I click on kids yoga on the side, we see that only this one post shows up. But if I click on yoga, both posts show up. So it's a way to categorize my post. It's aptly named. Notice the new category that I added is not showing up. That's because I did not publish my site. As I mentioned, for categories to show up, new ones, we have to publish the site. And now we'll go back. I can just refresh this page, and there it is. New post. The category shows my new post. So that's a way to use the Weebly blog to really generate not only content for your site, but a reason for people to come back. And that's a really powerful thing. Think about yourself. Why do you go to the same sites every day? Most people do, the same 3 or 4 sites and maybe a couple of ones that they get linked to. What is it about those sites? What are they offering you? Usually it's something new, a new piece of information, it's fresh, and you always want to stay up to date. The same thing, same concept should be done while you're building your site on Weebly. You can also optimize if you have a store, an online store. We can optimize our products, our categories, and our storefront. So if I go to my Pages tab, I have a store page here and I click on it. There's no advanced settings option. So I can't set the advanced settings in this Pages tab as I can with every other page on my site. But if we go into Edit Storefront, here on the right-hand side, there's this Advanced Options area. And here I can set the title, description, and the permalink for my storefront. Again, the title is that blue link that's going to show up in Google. Description is that gray text that shows up in the result. Categories. A storefront is basically a glorified category. So categories are going to work the same way. Click on the tab, click into a category, and on the right-hand side, we see some advanced options, the exact same ones. I can set my permalink, title, description. Lastly, we have products. Now, products are a bit different in that a product can be optimized through the use of building text. We can create a short description, which is going to show up when we view the product. Additionally, down here, we can see that I've done this before. We have an area that we can actually drag elements. It's called the long description, and by default, it is empty. But if I wanted to add stuff, I could add a title and I could add text, use my text to help optimize my page. Additionally, I can use galleries and I can throw images in here. So this is like any other page on Weebly, so I can add all of this stuff to my products. Again, if you're going to add images, make sure you're adding alt tags. Always use text as the primary way to optimize your site. So if we go back in to edit this product, we can set the permalink of the product in the same way for blog posts and my categories, my storefront. And I can also set the advanced options, the SEO page title and the SEO description. So all of this is very redundant. It's just about knowing where to add this stuff. Now, we've gone over quite a bit. There's a lot of different things to think about. And if you already have a pre-built website with 100 pages and 200 products and a bunch of blog posts, it may feel overwhelming. Because what I would strongly suggest is that you go back and you start doing these things and backfilling, setting the descriptions, going to your page, looking at what is on your page, summarizing your page in the description, summarizing your description with the keywords, and then move on to the next page, making sure all of your images have alt tags and everything like that. One suggestion, if you're just getting started, is to do this as you go. Add this stuff in as you add an image, add a descriptive tag. As you are working on a page and add a few paragraphs of text, update your page description and your keywords. Do it as you go, and it won't feel like so much work at the end. The last thing within the Weebly editor that I'm going to go over is the 301 redirects. So the concept is this. Let's say that I had this website at this URL somewhere else, and I'm rebuilding my site with Weebly. Now, I used to build sites with a software that would organize my pages. So we see here that I've got drop downs. So it used to organize my pages like this. So lunchtime asana / black and white. And if I try to go to that page now, nothing exists. I don't have a page that has this path. And with Weebly, I can't build it. I'm not going to be able to create this as the actual URL of any of my pages. But that's why we give you the ability to make 301 redirects. So if I copy this part of the URL, go back to my editor, and we're going to add a redirect. I paste in the old URL, and here from the dropdown, I can choose whatever page I want it to go to. So clearly I want this one to go to black and white. Save the redirect, save the settings page, publish the website. Now if we go back to this page and just refresh, it is going to forward me automatically to the actual page that I wanted. Now you can do this with any sort of crazy URL, not just something simple like that. So let's copy this first, and then let's just press enter, and obviously this page doesn't exist on my site, but let's say that I want it to. If somebody has this URL bookmarked, or if it's floating around the internet as a link somewhere, I don't want people to go to a 404 page. Google doesn't like that. Google will think there's a problem and my site is going to lose ranking. So even though I can't build this, I need it to go somewhere so that my 404 page doesn't appear. So we'll go back in. Again, we're in settings, SEO, add a redirect, paste in all that gibberish, and let's just have it take us to the blog page. Save, update, and publish. Now all we have to do is refresh, and we're taken to the blog page. So it's a very simple way to make sure that if you're rebuilding a site, or if you just want to use some URL for marketing or something like that, where you can set that URL to automatically forward to a specific page of your site. Now, this is not within the editor. I guess part of it is, but Weebly has an app center, if you didn't know. We can go in, take a look at the apps, and we can do a search. Let's search for SEO. Now we can see there are a number of different apps that are available for search engine optimization to help us out with that. You can take a look at these. Some are paid, some are free. In my opinion, you should absolutely do everything that you can to build up the groundwork, which we have gone over in this webinar, before you look to pay somebody else to analyze what you have. You want to have a solid foundation. Now, one thing that I strongly suggest is this app here, Site Booster. This is a very powerful app to get your business's information, or just the information of your personal site, showing all of your information on Google and Yahoo and Bing and all these other search engines at once. If you were to go right now to google.com/business, you can do the exact same thing that Site Booster allows you to do. You can do this within Google. You can build it, and you can put all of your information. You can see what it would look like. You have your address, your phone number, your hours, all of this stuff. And then you would do it for Bing, and then you would do it for Yahoo, and then you would do it for all these different places, and you could do it all without the app. But let's say that in a month your hours change. You would have to go back to each individual website, Google, Bing, Yahoo, Facebook, and update all of that information on their side. With this app, it does it all for you. You update the information and it sends it all out. It's extremely powerful, which is the reason that I bring it up. I think there's a ton of value here for you. You can check out the App Center for the other apps that we have. You can also check out our community, community.weebly.com. We have a section for SEO where you can ask questions, where you can read about what other people are doing. Now, a couple other concepts that we should go over before I start answering questions are, I want to go over the concept specifically of backlinks. So now these are links that are coming back to your website. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, search engines like Google use algorithms that look at a lot of different things, a ton of different data to determine one thing. What is the most valuable answer to my question? Yoga for beginners, that's my question. Google thinks that this is the most valuable reference. So yogajournal.com. This is a big site that's very well known, has a lot of visitors to it. Let's say that one day Yoga Journal likes something that I have posted, maybe a blog post or something, and they actually put it on their website somewhere. Google sees that as powerful because Yoga Journal has given their visitor, somebody that is here for a very specific reason, because they find value in Yoga Journal. Yoga Journal has given them the ability to leave their website, to go to somebody else's website. The only reason to do that is if Yoga Journal felt like there was great value at the page that that link goes to. Now, as a visitor visiting Yoga Journal, again, I'm here for a reason. I have a limited amount of time in my day. I can't go to every website and I can't spend forever on every one. So every minute that I spend here is looked at as valuable. There must be value here or I wouldn't be here. So I'm here for a reason, and I decide to click on something that takes me over to this other website. And Google sees that as valuable too. I purposefully was here and I decided to go check out something else that was offered to me by Yoga Journal, which was my website. And that's very valuable. So those are links back to your site. There are other ways to think about this. Social media, things like Yelp and Facebook. We already went over google.com/business. There's a lot of value that a lot of people miss when using something like Facebook. Facebook, you can share your posts and see how many likes you get and all of that stuff. But ultimately, if you don't drive that traffic back to your website, then any sort of value boost that the website gets is all going to be value boost for Facebook itself. Your content on Facebook is boosting Facebook. But if you build a blog post on Weebly, and then you go to Facebook and you share the first few lines, ... read more here, and you link them back to your Weebly website, then you are driving traffic from Facebook to your website. And in this way, you are empowering your website. You are creating more value for your website, and it's going to increase your ranking over time. That is the way that I would use all of these different third-party platforms, Facebook and all the rest of them. Use them to drive traffic back to the hub of your online business, the hub of your online presence, which is your Weebly website. Everything that you do outside of your Weebly website should be for the purpose of driving people back to your website. And in doing that, you are going to be rolling this snowball down the hill. It's going to keep growing, and your site will continue to get better and better in the rankings. One thing that you can do, that if you do any research on SEO, you're going to see that you can pay people money for exchanging traffic and getting, X number of hits to your site in X number of days. There could potentially be value there, but you must think about it like this. You should build your site up first. You should make sure that you are optimized and have a great groundwork laid. And you should make sure that your site is something that all of that traffic would want to come back to a second time or a third time or every day. Something that's valuable, where you're putting fresh content in. Because ultimately, it's not going to do you a lot of good to have 1,000 people all go to your website one day and then never come back. That could do you more harm than good. There's not going to be long-term benefit in that. But if you can draw in a third or even a tenth of those 1,000 people, 100 people that start coming back weekly, that's going to be because of your content, because of your site, and that'll be the real value of paying for something like that. So that brings me to the end of what I have prepared. We're just under an hour. So far, there have been no questions asked, but feel free to ask now. I'm going to get a drink of water, take about a minute or two, wait for some questions, and I'll be right back with you. All right, William asks, can you discuss the footer code section? Absolutely. So the concept of the footer code section is identical to the concept of header code. Basically, it's a way for us to place a code that we would, to show up on every page of our website. We did that with this Google Webmaster Tools tag. We would want the same thing to happen with a Google Analytics tag, show up on every page of our site. Now let's take a look here. So let's do this. So I've already got this meta here, but let's do something a little bit different. Let's just type in my header code, and here we'll type in my footer code. We will click save, and we will click publish. To the live site we go. Now, one thing we can see that if you just type text into this section, the header code, it's going to show up here in the top left, right? That the actual meta code didn't, but just plain text will. So that's not something that I would advise actually doing on your site. I'm just doing it to kind of show you how this works purposes. So usually any actual code that you put into your header code area is going to show up in the header section. So by definition, the header section begins with this head tag and ends at a tag all the way down here, which is the closing head tag. So this is a section of code that's helping to make your website functional, all of the menus and the drop downs and all that kind of stuff that shows up above the code than when compared to the body, like your images. So here's my header code. So when I added it there, just like my Google site verification, it shows up just in this section. Now, as my browser loads any website, it is literally going line by line, loading, 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 loading. It loads from top to bottom, from one down, one at a time. Now, usually this is done so quickly that we don't notice it, but sometimes if you have a lot of codes or scripts or things that you need loaded on your site, sometimes it can slow the loading of your site down if you've got a ton of stuff. Now with Weebly, it looks like we have a ton of stuff here, but our load times are very good, so don't want to bring up any worries. Anyway, so we've already gone over this before, my header code. Where is my footer code? If we scroll all the way to the bottom of my code, down here at the bottom of the body section, right here, we see my footer code. So this is showing up beneath all of the images and pictures and everything on my page. So it is loading after. It still shows here in the source, but the difference is that anything that I put into this section will load prior to the rest of my content. Anything that I put in this section is going to load after all of my content. So if I need something to be loaded right away, like the reason that we see so much stuff in the header is because these are the things that are determining the color of my links and just all of the code of my site. You know, the way that my navigation works, the way this drop down works and how it looks. All of that stuff is necessary to load first. But if I have something like a Google Analytics code, I don't need that to load right away. It can load after the page loads, like the rest of the page. It doesn't matter. It just has to eventually be there. So that's something that could go in footer code. Now, I've gone into a little bit of detail on it, but usually whoever you are getting this code from is going to tell you where you should be putting it. And typically, I would just listen to their instructions, like we did with this Google Webmaster Tools code, and like I would if we were to set up Google Analytics. Google Analytics would say, put me in the footer, so I would throw it there. Whereas Webmaster Tools said, put it in the header, so we'll just put it here. Remember, anytime you make changes, you need to save and publish. So at this point, that was the only question that was brought up. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I could just go over a feature that is pretty new that I am really excited about. So if we go to my store, and this does have to do with SEO, so it's relevant. Our storefront, if you have a storefront, it by default has always been at this URL, like yourdomain.com/store/C1 stands for category 1. Again, I mentioned that the storefront is a glorified category. So store, category 1, and then featured products.html. There was no way for you to change this. And while you still cannot change this part, your storefront's always going to be store C1, I can change this to whatever I want. This permalink option for my storefront is relatively new. So if I change the permalink to my-amazing-store, update changes, if I go back to my live site, all I have to do is refresh this page and the permalink changed. This is a cool thing for search results. Up until now, anytime your storefront was being displayed in Google, it would show featured products, but now you don't have to call it that. You can call it whatever you would like. So an SEO related change that's relatively new that gives you a lot more flexibility with that certain part. So there still at this point are no further questions. If you do have any more questions, we are active on our community. I am active on there, as well as employee mods and lots of users who go here to find various pieces of information. If I search the community for a webinar, I can see we have different posts for our different webinars, and here's the one for improve your search ranking. You can go here, you can take a look at the next webinars, or feel free to post in here if you come up with any further questions today, or you can always just create a new topic. We do have webinars every single week. You know where to sign up because you found this one, but if we go to hc.weebly.com, scroll down our live training webcasts, we can see what is offered, and we can see that for Build an Online Store, the next webinar is going to be on Tuesday, the 26th. You can sign up through these links. We look forward to having you. Thank you for being here today. I believe you get afforded the opportunity to leave feedback after the presentation closes. Please do. I'm always trying to get better, and any feedback that you have is very much appreciated. Have fun building your Weebly site. Have a great week, and we will see you soon.